I adjusted my outdated reading glasses and straightened the papers on my modest desk outside the boardroom. Through the expensive wood doors, I could hear Victoria's confident voice presenting her latest innovation. "We need to streamline operations," she was saying, "starting with outdated personnel." By outdated personnel, I knew she meant me, Margaret Wilson, the seemingly simple executive secretary who'd been with the company for 30 years. What she didn't know was that I founded Global Dynamics in my garage, building it into a billion-dollar tech corporation while maintaining my anonymity. Speaking of which, Victoria continued, "we really need to discuss Ellen from the front desk. She's been here far too long, and frankly, she's not the image we want to project." I glanced at my practical shoes and simple cardigan, my carefully crafted disguise. For years, I'd worked this way, observing my company's culture from the ground level, while another woman played the role of CEO in public appearances. "Ellen's been with us for decades," Thomas from HR protested weakly. "She knows every aspect of operations." "Exactly my point." Victoria's voice dripped with disdain. "We need fresh blood, not old secretaries who can barely handle email." If she only knew I'd written half the code that ran their email system. My son James, Victoria's husband and our chief technology officer, cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Maybe we should focus on the quarterly projections." "No, this is important," Victoria insisted. "Do you know what happened yesterday?" I asked Ellen to prepare my presentation slides, and she suggested improvements to my technical specifications. A secretary trying to correct my work. I smiled slightly, remembering the glaring errors I'd spotted in her proposal. "The board meets tomorrow to review senior management positions," Victoria continued, "and I think it's time we discussed modernizing our support staff. Starting with Ellen." My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah, my trusted friend who played the role of CEO in public. "Ready to end this charade?" "Almost," I typed back. "Let's see how far she goes." The boardroom door opened and Victoria strode out, designer heels clicking on marble floors. She paused at my desk, looking down at me through expensive frames. "Ellen, be a dear and get me the employee termination forms," she said sweetly. "Oh, and you might want to update your resume. Changes are coming." I peered at her over my fake reading glasses. "Changes, Ms. Harrison." "Progress, Ellen. Something you wouldn't understand," she smiled coldly. "We can't all keep up with the times." If she only knew I'd pioneered half the technology she claimed to understand. "Of course, Ms. Harrison. Will there be anything else?" "Yes, actually. The board meeting tomorrow. Make sure there's fresh coffee. Something expensive. Not that awful break room stuff you drink." I nodded meekly, watching her stride away. The awful break room stuff was actually my own premium coffee brand, but she'd never bothered to read the label. My phone buzzed again. "Board's ready when you are," Sarah messaged. Time to show her who really runs things. I looked at the termination forms Victoria had requested, then at the real documents in my drawer, the ones revealing my true identity as founder and majority shareholder. "Tomorrow," I replied. Let her enjoy her last day of superiority. That evening, as I was organizing files, actually reviewing quarterly reports, James stopped by my desk. "Ellen, I'm sorry about Victoria. She can be ambitious," I suggested mildly. "That's one word for it." He shuffled uncomfortably. "Look, you've been here forever. Maybe you could retire. Take a nice package." I studied my son's face, remembering the boy who used to visit my office job after school, never knowing he was playing in the building his mother owned. "Do you really think I'm outdated, James?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "It's not that. Victoria just wants to make changes, modernize things." "Like firing loyal employees?" "You don't understand business," he said patronizingly. "Sometimes tough decisions need to be made by people who understand their consequences," I finished. "Yes, I know quite a bit about tough decisions." He looked confused by my tone, but was distracted by Victoria calling from down the hall. "James, we're late for the country club dinner. Coming?" He gave me an awkward pat on the shoulder. "Just think about retirement, okay?" I watched him hurry after his wife, wondering when he'd forgotten the values I tried to teach him about treating people with respect. Later that night, I sat in my true office, the top-floor suite everyone thought belonged to Sarah. Tomorrow's board meeting would reveal everything, but tonight, I reviewed Victoria's complete employee file. Brilliant but ruthless, innovative but cruel. ambitious but without compassion. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked, bringing me my actual reading glasses. It's been 30 years of anonymity. Time for a change, I smiled. Like Victoria says, we can't all keep up with the times. I pulled up the real company records on my screen, showing the truth about who owned Global Dynamics, who had built it from nothing, and who really signed everyone's paychecks. Besides, I added, I think it's time for some modernization of our own. Victoria won't take this well, Sarah warned. No, I agreed. But she's about to learn that true innovation isn't about dismissing experience, it's about respecting it. I looked at tomorrow's agenda, where Victoria would present her plan to streamline operations by firing the old secretary who'd built the company she was so eager to reshape. Sometimes, I thought, the best lessons about progress come from the very people you're trying to leave behind. The next morning, I arrived early, wearing my usual modest outfit. Victoria was already there, pacing the hallway in her designer suit, rehearsing her presentation. Ellen, she barked, spotting me. Where's that premium coffee I asked for? Right here, I said, gesturing to the brewing pot. From my personal supply. She sniffed dismissively at the unmarked container. This better not be that cheap stuff you usually make. I bit back a smile, watching her drink the $100 per pound coffee I developed as one of our subsidiary company's signature products. Actually, Ms. Harrison, this is. Don't care, she cut me off. Just make sure the boardroom is perfect. The CEO's coming today. Oh, I know, I murmured, straightening paper sheets scattered across my desk. The board members began arriving, each nodding politely to me, the invisible secretary they'd never really noticed. Sarah walked in last, playing her role perfectly in her power suit and carefully practiced authority. Ellen, she winked discreetly, shall we begin? Victoria rushed forward. Sarah, I'm so glad you're here. I have some exciting proposals about modernizing our operations. I'm sure you do, Sarah replied coolly. Ellen, would you join us, please? The secretary? Victoria's perfect eyebrows shot up. This is a closed board meeting. Yes, I agreed, removing my fake reading glasses. It is. James arrived just then, almost dropping his tablet at seeing me enter the boardroom. Ellen, what's going on? Please, everyone, take your seats, Sarah announced. There's something you should know about Ellen, or should I say Margaret Wilson? Victoria laughed sharply. Who? The founder and majority owner of Global Dynamics, Sarah said, stepping aside as I took the CEO's chair. Your actual boss for the past 2 years. The room fell silent. Victoria's face went from confused to pale to bright red in seconds. This is ridiculous, she sputtered. She's just a secretary. Actually, I said, dropping my meek demeanor, I'm the woman who built this company from nothing. The one who developed our core technologies. The one who's been watching how you treat inferior employees. James collapsed into his chair. Mom? Hello, sweetheart, I smiled, surprised to see what your outdated mother actually does for a living. Victoria's hands trembled as she gripped her presentation folder. But Sarah's the CEO. Sarah's my dear friend who plays CEO for public appearances, I explained, while I observe how my company really runs. How people behave when they think no one important is watching. This is a joke, Victoria insisted weakly. I pressed a button, and my achievements filled the screen behind me. Patents, innovations, awards received under my real name but never publicly claimed. The coffee you just called cheap, my premium brand. The email system you think I can barely use, my code. The technical specifications you dismissed yesterday, my improvements. The board members shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering every time they'd ignored or dismissed Ellen's suggestions. But why? James asked. Why pretend to be a secretary? Because character shows in how you treat people you think can't help or hurt you, I said quietly, something you seem to have forgotten. Victoria straightened her spine. Fine, you're the owner, but my proposal is for modernization. You mean your plans to fire experienced employees because they don't fit your image of success. I interrupted. Yes, let's discuss those. I pulled up her personnel file. You're brilliant, Victoria. Your innovations could help this company grow. But your treatment of others? That's not leadership. It's bullying with a corner office. I was just trying to improve things, she protested. By destroying the lives of people who built this company? People like me. I shook my head. That's not improvement, it's arrogance. James leaned forward. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have. Should have what? Stopped your wife from mistreating employees. Remembered the values I taught you? Yes, you should have. Sarah distributed folders to everyone. These are the real quarterly reports. As you can see, our outdated employees have been instrumental in our success. Victoria flipped through the pages frantically. But my position, my authority, is now under review, I finished, along with anyone else who thinks experience is a liability rather than an asset. You can't just. I can and I will, I said firmly. This company wasn't built by destroying people, it was built by developing them. Something you'd know if you'd ever bothered to learn from those you considered beneath you. The board members nodded in agreement, many looking ashamed of their own behavior. So what now? James asked quietly. Now, I smiled, we're going to have a long discussion about real innovation, starting with how we treat every member of this company, from the CEO to the newest intern. Victoria's perfectly maintained facade finally cracked. And me? That depends, I said, leaning back in my chair. Are you ready to learn from an old secretary about what really makes a company great? Sometimes, I thought as Victoria struggled with her new reality, the best view of a company's character isn't from the top floor. It's from behind the desk everyone walks past. The transformation of both global dynamics and my family over the next 6 months surprised everyone, especially those who'd witnessed Victoria's previous reign of corporate superiority. Initially, Victoria retreated to her office, emerging only to complain about unconventional management styles. But when our employee satisfaction scores skyrocketed and innovation increased, she found herself facing an unfamiliar concept: success through kindness. The turning point came through, of all things, a failed project. I need help, she called one evening, her voice missing its usual arrogance. The new software platform has critical errors, and the junior developers, they suggested something that might work. I could have let her fail. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, bring them to my office. Let's all work on this together. The Victoria who arrived at 8 p.m. was barely recognizable. Her designer suit wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled, and her eyes held something I'd never seen before: humility. The junior developers, people she would have once dismissed as irrelevant, watched as I guided them all through the problem-solving process. Everyone's perspective matters, I explained as they collaborated on the code. Just like every employee matters, regardless of their title. The irony of my words wasn't lost on anyone. What followed was what the staff called the Great Awakening. The woman who once couldn't be bothered to learn employees' names now spent lunchtimes mentoring junior staff. Victoria actually debugged my code today, a young developer told me proudly. She didn't even mind when I found a mistake in hers. James, showing more growth than I'd expected, started a company-wide initiative to recognize contributions from all levels. He worked alongside entry-level employees, learning their challenges and ideas. One day, I overheard him tell Victoria, "Why didn't we see how much talent we were ignoring?" Victoria set down her coding manual, hands trembling. "Because we were too busy looking up to look around," she admitted softly. "We thought authority came from position, not wisdom. Like how we treated Mom." "Yes," she whispered. "Your mother built an empire while serving coffee, and we were too blind to see past our own ambition." The real breakthrough came during our first company-wide innovation summit. A maintenance worker presented a brilliant efficiency solution. The old Victoria would have ignored him. The new Victoria spent hours helping him prepare his patent application. "This is real progress," she said afterward. "Not just in technology, but in how we value each other." Later that evening, as we closed the office, Victoria lingered by my desk. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about my role here." "Oh, yes, I'd like to start a mentorship program. But not just for executives, for everyone. Teaching and learning from each other." I studied her face, looking for any trace of her old superiority. Found none. "That's a wonderful idea," I said carefully, "but it would mean admitting you don't know everything." "The best leaders are eternal students," she replied, watching a janitor teach a programmer about efficient system maintenance. "I just wish I'd learned that sooner." James, who'd been pretending not to listen, joined us. For the first time ever, he looked at me with complete understanding. "Will you help us?" Victoria asked. "To build something better this time?" "Better," I smiled. "We'll all do it together." and learned plenty along the way. I looked at them both uncertainly. If you're ready for that? They nodded, watching years of corporate hierarchy dissolve like obsolete code. As we left that night, James pointed to our company's new motto: innovation comes from every level. Yes, I agreed, watching Victoria hold the door open for the cleaning crew. And sometimes the best leaders are the ones who learn to follow. The office lights dimmed behind us, but the glow of transformation lit our way forward. In the end, it wasn't about titles or power or even corporate success. It was about learning that true innovation isn't found in corner offices, it's found in the hearts and minds of every person who walks through our doors. As Victoria often says now, the best companies aren't built from the top down. They're built by valuing every voice, even the ones you once tried to silence. And sometimes, the greatest authority isn't the power you display, but the wisdom you gain from pretending to have none at all.